day 3 of the event was pretty much the same thing all day as you've seen in my last 2 vlogs. Now with these sit-down interviews, we was pretty much booked the entire day, from the first interview being 8:20 a.m. all the way to about 2 p.m. was the final interview, due to the event ending at 2 p.m. Now later in this vlog, I had to go conduct some very fast sit-down interviews out in the hall due to us being so overbooked, and they didn't want to turn anyone down who wanted an interview. So you'll see a little bit of that here shortly. And in doing some of these hallway interviews, there was quite a few times where I had to tell the client no to a request that they had asked of me. I want to know, do you guys find it hard to tell your client no at times, or are you a yes man most of the time? I usually like to just do whatever the client asks of me, but for this case, I knew the image would look so much better if I told them no and suggested a different approach for the interview. Again, in the moment, you're going to see one of these sit down interviews that I did, and they wanted to replicate that same exact first interview for another interview. But by the time the second interview rolled around, they had already started lunch. But the backdrop that I previously had used was already filled with a bunch of cups, napkins, plates, coffee machines, because they were setting up for lunch. So the client wanted to use that same backdrop, but I just told them I don't think it would be a good idea. I don't think it would look good. And I personally just didn't want to do that. I knew that I could find a better frame for them, and I didn't want to just cheap out on just using a backdrop that is just filled with cups and forks and coffee machines. It just didn't look good. So I told them, I said, hey, I don't want to do that. Can I do a different approach? If I find a different frame, will you guys be willing to work with that instead? And I did. I found a better frame, and they actually liked it a lot better. So it all worked out.
So I'm setting up for an interview, and my thought is to utilize this light coming from right there as a key light, but it might be too harsh. So I'm not sure exactly where I want to frame it at. I'm gonna use this because I want more depth, but I might pull it out of the sunlight because it might be too harsh and it might blind the person who's being interviewed. So I'm gonna sit down there and figure it out, but I'm trying to utilize the sunlight that I have as a natural light because we're not gonna use other lights, so we're not bringing no lights out. So this is the frame that I end up going with. I end up moving it because the light was just way too harsh. So I just put them against this backdrop right here. You can see it's nice and blurred out. Client approved. I left headroom because they want to punch in post. So yeah, I think it looks good. What do you guys think? We're using natural light, so. I have it mic'd up with one lavalier. I might switch it to manual focus, so I don't have anybody walk out of frame, or walk in frame, I mean, because there's a lot of people coming. I could put it in autofocus face and eye only, because there's a lot of people coming now, and I don't want nobody ruining the shot. Change of plans. Second interview got canceled. I'm telling you, this is typical with event work. So I'm gonna put everything away and wait until the other interview comes again. I need to get like a headphone holder and clamp it right here. I think a small rig makes like a clamp where you can like put headphone wires right there. So I'm gonna keep wrapping it like this because I don't like how this looks, honestly. Oh, and also we're using a Rode stick mic for the man on the street interviews. This is it.
So this right here, I thought it was pretty interesting. This entire setup is essentially a giant teleprompter.
So we just wrapped up another interview. They're very fast, so it's hard for me to show you guys. I couldn't use my same location because the director was kind of on me about rushing. But this is how the frame looked. Again, we're using natural sunlight. I'm using this background right here, this deep hallway, because I wanted more depth. Luckily, I threw an 85 on.
Really quick, I don't even think I mentioned throughout these videos, but our camera settings, they wanted as Cinetone because they wanted a fast turnaround time. And then they wanted my exposure to be auto exposure, and they wanted my white balance to be auto white balance. Those are two settings that I don't ever use.
As you can see in that clip, I had them kind of towards a window because I want to utilize the natural sunlight as a key light. The only big issue, I'm doing another interview. It's a 2-person interview in a minute, about like 15 minutes. The only big issue with this interview is I was right next to that sign and it was changing colors. And when it turned orange, it definitely is noticeable. But the client told me it's fine. It looks good to them. So, but this time I'm not giving them an option to tell me if it's fine or not. I'm going to do it right here because I don't want to deal with that again. I don't like that. So hopefully the production company, the client who hired them said it's fine. So hopefully the production company itself doesn't mind. But this is where I'm going to set it up. A 2-person interview right here. I'm not doing it from the windows because the sun is always shifting and I don't want to shift in the middle of the interview. So I'm gonna do it right here. It's a busy section. Everyone's on lunch right now, so it shouldn't be that bad. But the interview is at 12:30. I actually might go grab lunch real quick because I am kind of hungry, but that line down there is pretty big. I'm keeping a manual focus because I just like using manual focus, honestly.